This week, we have a fantastic interview. It is the first of its kind in terms of who this person is and what they do. And it's one of those cases where who they are is also what they are. This is it. It was really great. You're going to really enjoy this. Once again, the pneumonia bug has crept up, and Danny somewhat participated in the interview. There was just not a lot of, she couldn't do a lot of talking. But we both got through it. It was really great. And go ahead and get comfortable, because this is going to be like a university class almost. A lot of good information in here for our writers. So if you're a screenwriter, if you're an indie filmmaker who produces, directs, and writes, this really a lot of valuable stuff here. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Hey, B-Siders. Welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim.
And this is Danny.
And we have, we've kind of hinted at this. We have a first of its kind interview. We think you are going to really enjoy this. We are
very excited.
Yeah. We are on with Terry McFadden, who is a script doctor. Not something we've talked a lot about, and but it's out there. So writers, listeners who are in the writing realm, you know that the term script doctor pops up all over the place. And we're going to learn a little bit about the mystery and the art of it. So hello, Terry.
Thanks a lot, James. Thanks a lot, Danny. A pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys giving me a call to learn about being a script doctor. And I'm a script doctor, story analyst. I have a writing service called Story Builders, where I work mainly with screenwriters and TV writers, people putting pilots out there, screenwriters, screenplays, and all kinds of side documents that they're going to need to push their project. I create them for them, or I'll work with them in order to create that, taking their feedback and outlines and treatments and pitch bibles and one-pagers and one-paragraphers and an elevator pitch and a up-the-stairs pitch and around the side pitch. All of these things that a writer is going to need, and consultation and things like that.
Okay. Well, yeah, we know what all of that means, because we since the age of 7, I've been writing, and I've had some short stories published. I had a novel that a publisher who shall not be named back in the early 90s had a young writers program where they bring in young writers and work with them and stuff. And I was so close. And then they shut the program down. And then not too long after that, they shut down. So, but it was only in actually 2013 when we decided to take on script writing.
Yeah, screenwriting.
And it was kind of a joke thing. So we actually spent the first couple of years learning the hard way what all those things you're talking about meant. And, we learned when someone said, hey, give us a pitch. Well, we had what we thought was a pitch, but apparently they wanted, something a little more robust. So, we had our little one-liner in a single page.
Online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, we learned how to do a 2-page written pitch to submit. We've tried verbal pitches, 3 minutes go. That is hard.
Yeah.
Hard. I mean, when we tackled the script writing, we got kind of big in the head, and we're like, we bought a book, read it on how to write and format a script, and looked up a bunch of stuff. We spent a couple months figuring it out. And then when we tackled it along the way, we're like, well, this isn't real hard. It's, a lot of technical stuff we have to pick up. Then the pitch thing came in, and oh my God, that just like, talk about, hey, you need some humility. we learned we sucked at pitching.
You do. Well, you do, because when you're doing a pitch, especially, I just wrote a pitch Bible for somebody. Another one, and I just finished it on Sunday, which was, I think, 2 days ago. I tightened it up a little bit for him today, and it's for a television series. He has the pilot, but when you're writing a pitch Bible, every word, every paragraph has to convey so much, because you don't want to be redundant. Every paragraph, one paragraph will be, well, what is the show? The next one will be my personal connection to it. And after that's, how are the themes laid out? What is the world? What are the rules of the world? What are the settings? What's the fun of the show? How are you doing this different than somebody else, that convention? All of these things are in there. It's not a random, hey, let me tell you. It has to be in there. It has to move it. It has to look at, and you have to convey why your show can go 100 episodes. God bless you. And, how can your show prove to me that you have a story engine and all of these things, that your television series can go 100 episodes? Are you hinting about that in the pilot? What are you showing me in your pilot that I can see that this is going to go that far? What are you setting up? What kind of pilot is it? Is it a premise pilot? Is it, what is this to me? And you have to do all of that, and not only get that done, but do it in your own voice. Like I'm talking to you now. Somebody else might be saying, well, I'll tell you, James, the thing about the Eagle pitch pilot is that when one does said, no, they want to be, you're writing, getting all that vital information across, yet talking to them like they can almost hear you. That page has to come alive. This is not a college dissertation. This is not a law school thesis.
Right.
I want to buy your show, but I want to know you too. I read 100 of them since Monday. How are you different? How are you?
Right.
So it's a cool gig.
It is. And we learned, because we did it. What we did sucked in the beginning, because it was actually very sterile, very formulaic, because, this is how you do it. Yeah. And we've not stopped. We watch webinars, we, read articles from people in the industry and stuff. And we learned a couple things. One, there's no real one answer. So that was a huge thing off our shoulders. But also, voice. Find your voice. This is how I want to relay this. And as long as someone doesn't read it and look up at me and go, so what happened here? Then, that's a whole separate situation. But we found our voice and went back and reworked not just scripts, but our pitches, our summaries. And they're a million times better, because just like you said, you have to have that voice. And we actually found we were getting more conversations with people to talk to us and ask us about these projects. That's a huge thing, is voice. And we try to push that with every episode. We try to encourage people, write it, film it, compose it, do whatever, and do it your way.
Right.
Do it your way first. And then someone, and here we have an episode on that, someone can help you craft that in your voice, but also meet these other, like you were saying, TV pilots. This sounds like an interesting concept, but is it more than 4 episodes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it has to be in the voice. I mean, my specialty, what I have on my website and everywhere, you can see it on my card, I have T-shirts that say it too, is I help writers find and hone their own unique voice. Because you might look at a concept like a gangster film, like Goodfellas, like Donnie Brasco, like all of them. Well, if you're writing something like that, how is yours different than what we expect? What's different about yours? And I like to talk about, the writer's method of expression, how you communicate and exhibit your own life. How are you bringing you to the page? See, because when you're doing that, it doesn't matter what the genre is, even if it's a period piece. What are you centering on as a writer? Mm-hmm. Okay. What is your common topic of exploration? Is it childhood trauma? Is it, the law enforcement agency? Is it, whatever it might be? This is what's going to make you different. You can see the differences. You can see the differences between Goodfellas and a friend of mine who wrote a gangster film about his father was a gangster But his mom wanted him to do the right thing. So this guy goes into leading gangs, very, very conflicted, meets a girl who reminds him of his mom. And now he's in one side of the road or the other side of the road. He doesn't want to be a bad guy, but he knows being a good guy isn't it. And it proved to be a very good inner conflict as well as a central conflict for him, trying to serve two masters. And there you have your theme. How am I going to serve two masters? There's your outer theme. What's your inner theme? I feel so bringing your voice opens up all aspects of you as the writer, because you're bringing your experience to it. Like myself, I grew up as a rock and roller. As a kid, I was playing in bands. And because I grew up in I had a traumatic household a little bit, and I didn't get what I needed. So I got it for playing music. But as I got older, I remembered, well, I didn't get this as a kid. So everything I'm writing, I'm a playwright too. I've been produced about 100 times, not to brag, but I just want to say.
Hey,
and
congratulations.
Brag.
Yeah. But my themes, my voice, where I come from, my characters, no matter if they're bankers, lawyers, crooks, politicians, I said crooks, they're going to, they always get back to a place where they're searching for what they didn't get as a child. That's my voice subject matter. Method of expression is one thing, but my life experiences are something else. I wrote about a 40-year-old man, 6-figure earner with a wife and a little child, wants to go to Vegas to be an Elvis impersonator because he never got to do that, anything like that as a kid. Ruin the family, do this and do that. They're my themes. So see how important that is when any topic you talk about, like, again, I'll go back to the crime drama. If I'm bringing a character that I'm writing as maybe not the main character, but one of the characters, we're going to see what he wants, what he's missing in his life, what he needs, and how his behavior is going to do it, down to the nuance, because you've experienced it.
I like that. And again, that's something that we learned. We belong to a Stage 32, and we occasionally do the 2-page pitch. And for a while we're like, this sucks. This isn't going to work. But one of the little things that we changed was, part of the pitch format is, introduce yourself a little bit. And we took it just as, I'm Jim, this is Danny, and da-da-da-da. But then we realized, why did we write this? That's our introduction. So like we have a pilot, pirates far in the future on another world. And we ended up just saying, it's Jim and Danny, and we love pirates. And we think it's time for pirates to have their own world, universe, and history, because we love movies, and it not all this blah, 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 blah. But that's basically the whole point of it, because we love black sails. We love all pirate movies. But because we're such pirate buffs and pirate historians, we're like, oh God, those two people live 75 years apart. Why are they on the same deck? And we know, because of history, we know how the story is going to end. So we thought, what? We could do this, but we got to get it off of Earth. We got to abandon everything. And we built an entire universe, a whole 1,500-year history, and boom. And that's kind of our thing, is we want to give pirates freedom and give the audience something they've never had before. And wham, started getting a little more interest, a little more. Then we tightened up a few things here and there. And that's just it. And because again, that was our voice and our connection. And we learned that. But it's a tough row to hoe when you don't know what you don't know. It would start out with this.
It is. Because it's a great concept, because you're talking about your connection to material. You love pirates, your connection to material. How are you doing a pirate movie differently? But is James and Danny's take on it? How is that? Why do you have to write about this pirates right now internally? What goes on between these pirates that you're going to show in this movie that is James and Danny? What happens between these pirates? What's driving these pirates that drove you in your life? Now, you talked about the external concept here, and I love that. And that's good, and that'll get you meetings. But when you go in there and you tell them why you had to write this, because your uncle and his wife had this thing going on, and you brought this to the pirate genre, and you're saying what happened to all these people as a result of this.
Mhm.
Now you got people listening because you already bowled them over with your original concept. You got the original concept, and now you're telling them and you're expressing to them why you have to do this. And you're telling them subtextually what you have to say, why
Yes.
it has to be said, and why it has to be said now. Are you allegorizing something about our world today? Are you allegorizing the riots? Are you allegorizing the election? Are you allegorizing the pandemic? What are you doing that's making all of that today? You're walking in there now, like you said, with so much more experience and knowledge that you just feel the confidence of the concept that you two people have created.
Right. Right. And yeah, I mean, and that's like an easy thing for us. Every single thing we write, we like deep personal connections. That's what we want to get with the audience. We don't want to wow them with special effects. We don't want to wow them with the swashbuckling, you know. I mean, I love Errol Flynn and that whole era, but and we can still have that, but that was fluff. That was fun. That was fluff. That was Hollywood when it was like, hey, people just want, 84 minutes of relief from whatever misery is outside those doors. But that's something that we tell our listeners is, your story is your story. And that means not just what you're writing, but what you're throwing into it. We've had dark moments where, the life of the anti-hero is fun. You think of Han Solo from Star Wars, we think of, in some terms, Indiana Jones, because he is kind of sidestepping some things to get his good work done, but they're so fun because they're unpredictable. But we also feel like these characters have, deep connections. They do have that deep driving thing. They're lost. They want something, but they're not clear what it is, but they're throwing their all into it. We have characters driven by just all kinds of things, if it's a personal traumatic experience, a theological experience, a prophetic drive, I'm going to do this, and then it'll reveal itself to me. And then we like the onion approach, layers. Like in this one pilot, we've got over 20 elements very subtly introduced that will build each episode. And then they'll start weaving halfway through the first season. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, yeah, But we're not here to talk about that. We're
Well, yeah, I kind of want to,
go ahead.
if it's okay, I want to jump back to, you were talking about helping people find their voice and kind of what drives them, why they write the stories that they do. In my experience, like as a writer and writers that I know, like they don't always know why they want to write the stories that they do, right? They might not know that right away, but they write a thing and it's good. And then, they let their friends or, whoever kind of their like peer reading group, I guess, read it and give feedback on it and stuff. And then those people might pull out themes that they didn't even realize were in there. So how do you go about like helping people figure that out?
Well, I can generally get the idea of that upon a first read, and I'd have to ask, well, where are they in their process? Because what you just described sounds like first draft stuff to me. Rough draft stuff. It's very rough draft stuff. And what I would suggest if I was given that script initially is that I would go through it. And I've gotten these scripts before that are like 40 pounds heavy or 40 pages heavy, 40 pages. And then I would be able to make the discernation of what you're trying to say, what the themes are. And then there's structural things to look at too. But let's talk emotionally now. You're talking about themes. You're talking about underlying issues. You're talking about emotional triggers. You're talking about things that moves the internal storyline. That's what the character needs. The external storylines were what the character wants, his goal, what he needs. He needs to find the guy who kidnapped the girl before they feed her to the wolf. But what does he need in order to do that? What kind of a person does he need to change into? And that's in a drama or a dramedy or most comedies. Now, some high concept films don't have that. The hero doesn't appear to change much, like Back to the Future or all your Indiana Jones and thing like that.
Right.
But back to your question is, how do you find that? you're gonna go through that rough draft. You're gonna start to take a look at what's really resonating and what's connecting, what's moving you or your girlfriend who you just gave it to. She's gonna say to you, I was really moved by when she did blank blankety blank, but when she did blank blank and blank, it didn't really feel like her. So people who are reading it are going to give you that information. And sometimes it's okay to let your friends read it first before you give it to me, because I'm going to go in with a comb and with the suggestions that are really going to help you bring it up to production level. I'm going to do that. But that would be one method that I would do that. Now, again, we're talking the emotional line. We're talking what the character needs as opposed to the 3-act structure, as opposed to the plot point 1 and all of the pinch points and the inciting incidents and the last set where they're going to, I'm a musician, where they turn it all around and all of that. But I would go with that first upon first look to feel that what's resonating, what makes sense, because there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to cut out of when you see that, before you go to your actually writing of the plot lines themselves.
Mm-hmm. And there's 2 levels there that we've talked about. Is one, you get to a point where the characters start directing you. When you're immersed in this, it's you. I mean, when it's that beautiful magic connection, when it just starts flowing out of you, and you're not really thinking, which is how I think we avoid writer's block, because everything takes us over. But for us, one of the things is we know we're in the right zone and we're in the right voice, because there's a couple scripts we've written where there's a couple spots in it where we get really choked up. And, we're not easily, our emotions aren't tickled very easily, but we read through and we're building up to it. And as it's happening, we're like, oh my God, this connection to the story, and it just hits so deep. But letting the character kind of lead the train, like, so we've talked about that a little bit, especially in rewrites, because we have a couple scripts that we typed out. Well, our first horror script, we wrote for us, not for the characters, because we were so proud, because it's about zombies, but we spent months reading about the brain, the nervous systems, the whole, basically the whole anatomy, and targeting how does a zombie work, because that's kind of important to the story, so that's going to guide some things that we're going to do. And when we got to writing it, we had 6 pages.
We had a lot, way too many pages explaining how a zombie works.
One of the characters was just endlessly going on. And it wasn't until the 3rd draft we looked at it and we're like,
this doesn't need to be in here.
This is
way too much.
It's a puff piece for us. We need to cut all this out, because this doesn't move the story forward at all. It just shows that we learned some terminology.
Yeah.
And then once we got past that ego, that part of, we want to really put Jim and Danny into this script. When we cut that part of it out, then it just became about the characters and the plot. And from there, everything just went, markedly different directions, and far easier to deal with, because we took out I guess you would call them the note cards. These are just little badges we want to stick in the background, but you can't put an Easter egg that's 6 pages long in a story. That's just terrible.
Unless you're Tarantino.
Right.
Well, yeah.
But even Quentin Tarantino, who likes to lead with his dialogue, has dialogue that just about tells the story in a structural way at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very skilled at that. But if you're, what did the kill you? Remember when we went to school, kill your babies? They told us
kill your darlings.
Yep.
Kill your darlings. And that's hard for anybody to do. I think that's hard for anybody, because you might write the most prolific monologue there that has nothing to do with the story, the obstacles, the stakes, or anything to do with that. It just sounds pretty cool, and it's great prose, might be a good monologue, some of those pages could be nice monologues and things like that. But if you wanted to move the story, well, that's when your babies are gonna have to go, because a beat sheet will help you with that. Even a beat sheet for an act at a time. What does this scene have to do, and where's this character going to go, and how did this scene change and advance this story, and how does everything doing it, depending on a stylistic way that you are writing, depending on that. And the zombie, I get a kick out of zombies. I in my book, I have a book that people can get I'll give you my website. And this comes from signing up my website. Is this flipped around? You can't read it.
No, I can see it.
I can see it.
That Sounds Like Me is the title.
Oh, then I'm flipped around the other way. Then my hair's not right. Okay. How's my hair? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm an egomaniac. Huh? But where I talk about using your own voice in Act 1 of your screenplay and your TV pilot, and where I talk about all of that stuff that we're talking about now, how you can really make it your own, because getting back to zombie movies, I mean, I think they're very entertaining. And this woman who I wrote about in my book talks about these flying elfin creatures and these gigantic monstrosaurus's that were replicative of the World War II, when her grandfather was in a prison camp. She took those personalities but made them dumb and bumbling and all over the place, and just took the zombie and the monster thing and turned it such a different way that it was very, very interesting, and it was very well done just in that aspect. She brought the thematic elements of man versus in war and fighting each other and coming together and all of that inside of a funny zombie film where these big characters were like bouncing into them, but then the antagonist bumped up and the zombies got it together like they always do if they're a good zombie team.
Oh, yeah.
These zombies, that the zombies got it together, and they had some zombie powwows. Hey, what do you do good? Oh, I do this good. Well, you're going to do that. We got to get back. And the antagonism raises, and then she had to raise and do things that she didn't want to do. And all of these things were inside of the giant backdrop of the flying zombies that her grandfather would tell her about when she was a little kid, about stories from World War II. And it's an enchantment. It's an enchantment when you make that zombie movie your own.
Oh yeah,
that's what people are looking for when they have a movie, and people come to me and I'll read it. And I read something just the other day. I was working with a guy and he had a gangster film. It was like Tony Soprano drinking a hot toddy down in Atlanta. It was like if you take Tony Soprano to Atlanta. And I looked at it and I said, this is a pretty good concept. But I said, let's make the hook even more. Let's make the hook even more. Let's take that hook and give him a rage issue, and he's a too good of a guy issue. Give him a split personality. Yeah. So now we got a hook. Now we got something. Now this man has 2 or 3 different things that differ him from the gangster genre film that came out of who he was and what he described to me while I was consulting with him. And this is the kind of the thing that a good script doctor is going to do. They're going to look at your premise and they're going to say, that's very well written. Let's work on the hook.
Right.
Let's work on where that hook comes from, you guys, Jim and Danny, where that hook comes from and how that hook, this is a TV show too, though, so that hook's going to develop throughout 13 episodes, the first season. This is what people are going to look at and say, wow, he did a really good spin on that. He did a spin on The Sopranos, and he took it down south, and he got this cool little hook going. And this hook, they're looking at that, why it's different, why it's Danny, why it's Jim, and still, it's a gangster film. It's a gangster film down south. It's a gangster film with a hot toddy. It's a gangster film. But you start looking at the dual nature, and you look at the hook. That I call it a conceit, and it's in the log line. What's going to make it a little bit different? Now you got people a little bit interested. Now you got people interested a little bit more because you're bringing a hook in from who you are. The man may have had a rage issue, or he was this, or he was a rescuer in real life. You bring that to your piece, you know exactly how to write that now because you lived that. And not only that, you know the nuance of what he's going to say and how he's going to say it because you lived that and you know how he feels. And now you got that emotional connection that both of you talked about a moment ago where you said now you burst out crying. Now you have a 50-some 300-pound man pouring his heart out and you're crying.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
That's where that comes from.
Absolutely. Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about how you got here.
How did I get to be a script doctor? When I got to Los Angeles in the 90s as an actor. I came over here as an actor, and I had written some things in college prior to that. And I joined this theater company down on Wilshire Boulevard called Actors Art Theater, and I started writing little bits. You know, I had been in a movie before that in New York City where I wrote comedy bits for a character. I wrote my own bits. It was set in the 60s, you know.
Okay.
So I did have a little training of that. It was a movie called All I Know Is, where it was in the late 60s, and I was a college student that was going to become a stand-up comic. So I had to write Terry the actor. I wrote the bits for that. And that was my first real filmic bit of writing. I was doing like scenes from The Graduate and, you know, things like that. It's just, for God's sake, this type of thing. But when I got to Los Angeles and went to Actors Art Theater, I started penning scenes for myself first and then for other actors. Little theater scenes, 3-4 page scenes. Then I started studying it a little bit. Then I started writing 10-minute plays. Then I started writing bigger plays than that. Then I would be studying it. I would go to UCLA, maybe AFI. At the same time, I started becoming a reader. Before you're a story analyst, you're a reader. Right. I worked for two different companies as a reader and a story analyst. When I started getting produced at Actors Art Theater, I started submitting these little plays to other theaters. Then I started getting more production credits as a playwright. I was so enthralled with that I started to study more, go to UCLA more, work for 2 companies down in where some movies that I gave notes on got made. I worked for 2 different companies, and then I went out onto my own with story builders and been doing that. Sometimes I would take a break. I would go play in a band or something. But the last few years, I grew up like that. And I just started learning more and more, being around it more and more, helping people with their scripts, with their screenplays, with their short plays. I did co-writing for people. I would do ghostwriting for people. I would help them with their screenplay, with their scripts. Some of my people got TV shows that they shot themselves. They were winning screenplay contests, called it Story Builders. And I just basically went from there and went bigger and bigger while I kept my own writing going at the same time. Mm-hmm. I shot a web series last year that I created. I've got my own couple of pilots here, just like everybody else on this planet and Pluto. You know? And that's how I came up, and I just started nurturing it a little bit more and a little bit more while all the time learning. And the thing about being a script doctor is you always got to be learning, because there's a whole new crop of sitcoms out now, and you got to look at, well, what's different about the sitcoms now than they were 20 years ago? And you're looking at shows like, say, Shrill, that might not have gotten made 10 or 12 years ago. Right. And you're looking at, you know, the 3-camera ones and how they're different than the single camera ones, and all of the genres that are going on. So I just continued to do that. And, you know, I had a bit of good luck when I first started reading from Actors Art Theater. I worked for 2 different companies. And this one company was a faction that they were several different producers that would put money in on films that were going to get produced. So I got with this company, and I would sit and I would watch pilots, you know, before computers got big, at his office in the TVs and all of that. And some of the scripts they would give me were from writers that were already a little bit established. Like I read Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Okay.
You know, that turned into a movie. Terry, should I put money into it? They're thinking that George Clooney might be directing on this. 7, 8, 9, 10 producers putting money in, call himself a company or part of it. I read The Good Girl with Jennifer Aniston. I gave notes on that. Terry, should we put money on this? The Eye Inside with Al Pacino, Shade with Sylvester Stallone and Gabriel Byrne. I read a couple other ones by writers who had some knowledge. So that helped me, because I had these scripts that actually got made, and I'm not saying they took my notes, but the ones that got made, I did give notes to producers on.
Okay.
And that's basically my journey for that. There were other things involved in networking and all of that. So.
Oh, networking is a have to. I mean, we've explained, we're introverts, but we learned quickly, you gotta at least start talking to people. And one of the reasons we started this podcast was we thought, well, our main focus on film for this podcast is B movies, the stuff that most people are like,
indie films and B movies.
Yeah. But and indie films.
Cool. Yeah.
But we point out often, there are B movies out there that we're like, man, that should have won an Oscar. That was way better than any of the tentpole movies that came out. But, people, a B movie is a B movie. Doesn't get the distribution, doesn't get the love, doesn't get the advertising. It tickles the fancy of a few people who are lucky enough to see it, and then it vanishes into history. And indie films, for every one that you see, there's 5,000 more that came out that exact same second you'll never find because it's just so vast. So in doing this, we thought, hey, we could reach out to some indie people and stuff. And I'll be honest, we are very surprised at we're talking with you and all the other people that we have met and been able to, have for these interviews and, build this little network of connections, and we always tell our listeners, networking is fine. Making connections is fine, but don't do it. And then, 72 hours later, hey, since we talked, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. But we have some just lovely relationships that have developed because of this. And, all for that whole, how can creatives be better for themselves? And that's kind of what this is all about and why we have all these varied things. With running with that, say, let's go through what would someone expect coming to you with a script? Say we have a young, aspiring indie filmmaker, right? Does his own writing. He wants to, get some money so he can shoot this movie. And he comes to you with a script, and it's, we'll say something like The Sandlot, right? It's, grown up in the Bronx, 74 to 77, with that period of his life that he's familiar with that he could write about. And it's just about kids and this bonding moment that, takes place. We're not going to develop a story here. But when he comes to you with a script, can you kind of, once you get your hands on it, can you give us a little look at your process? I mean, what are you looking for that you're like, there's the apple seed. There's the apple seed. And then, oh, nope, there's a weed. Got to go. And how do you craft that? Because to me, it's hard enough looking at stuff that we've written and trying to take an outside objective view and not go totally off book. We have to fight that when you're self-editing. Everyone hits that moment where this is shit. This is no good. God damn it. How can we ever fix this? But you got to pull out of that. But now you have taken a responsibility of, okay, I'm going to see what you've got, and we're going to surgically remove these pieces that simply don't belong. And then we're going to help germinate these growing seeds that you touched on to kind of build this, forest of beautiful story. And how's that work for you?
Right. When I get a script for somebody, let's just say it is a film script, 110-page film script. I'm going to do a detailed analysis on it, what I call a detailed analysis. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to analyze it in 6 different ways. I'm going to look at the premise first. Mm-hmm. Does the premise hold water? Is the premise tight enough? I'm going to look at the premise. Then I'm going to look at the story itself. the internal story, the story beats, the story points. Are there any twists and turns? Does the protagonist have a goal? Does he need a goal? What kind of protagonist is this? How's the antagonism doing? I'm going to look at all the story points. Then I'm going to go to structure. I'm going to go to structure and say, how well structured is it? Are the stakes rising where they should be? Is the antagonist almost as powerful or even more powerful than the protagonist? What does the antagonist have that the protagonist needs? How are they coming together? I'm going to look at the structure. I'm going to look at, are the scenes episodic? Are they repetitive? Am I being emotionally moved back to story? Are you moving me like Danny said before? Act 1, Act 2, where are the dividers there? How is it structured? How are you using exposition? I'm going to get really literal first, and then I'm going to go to the dialogue and they're going to go to character. Are the characters cookie cutter? Are they, what could make them better? Are they already good? Character and relationships. I'm going to look at the dialogue. Simple stuff. Is it on the nose? Are you using subtext? Does everybody speak differently? Can I cover the character name and just read the dialogue and know who that character is?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look at all of that first. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to talk about what is really, really working about this script. What's really popping? What's knocking me off? What did I not ever see before? What's working and why is it working? And I'm going to talk about everything that's really working. When I start talking about things that need to be addressed, rewritten, revised, or touched up, I'm going to back myself up by telling them why. Well, this doesn't work in here. You're 15 pages heavy. It's episodic because it's not moving the story, and you're telling me the same thing I've heard, but you're using different words, but you're not moving anything. There's no stakes here. There's nothing at stake here. There's not really twists here. That's predictable. I saw that coming. But I'm not just going to do that. I'm going to say, I have an idea. I'm not going to rewrite, but I'm going to say, I saw that coming. I wonder what would happen if they didn't know it was coming. If on page 23, you simply foreshadowed it instead of giving it away. So I'm going to go into great detail, but I'm going to always concentrate on what is really working, and I'm going to get to their voice. I have to get to their voice. This is your voice. And in these pages 27 to 44, man, I thought you were talking to me and I could see these events and the tension was there and the jeopardy was there and the stakes were there and the twists were there. And what a great reveal you had at Act 2 there. And that midpoint, I thought she was dead, but bam, she made it, and all of these other things. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to write that all up with my suggestions and just give them these pages back. But everything I talk about in the detailed analysis, I'm going to make sure that I explain why and what would be better, so people reading it could see, yeah, that would work better. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, I did see that. Man, I didn't see that, but now I do see that. And he's right. I do really nail this genre. Now, that character is really believable. Man, I had a great idea with this, because all scripts have seeds, like you mentioned, of greatness in them. And some of them have more. And sometimes the issue is that the stuff in a way just needs to be peeled away, and then the better issues got to be coming in. And it's important to be able to differentiate between story and structure, and knowing that structure is what we're hanging this on. And that's a lot of the external stuff. But we want to move people emotionally, even an action thing, a guy gets hit, we feel for him. We want to move people emotionally in a story thing. So all of those tenets I'm going to talk about, all of those, how are you doing it differently? And then I'll go a little bit deeper. I'll go a little bit deeper as per voice, because getting back to voice, I'll say, those flashbacks you did got the job done, but I don't know if you would do it if that's your voice. Is there a better way that you can get that exposition meted out? I had a woman write a screenplay that I worked on, God bless you, and where she didn't know what was going on with this new boyfriend of hers. There was something going on with him that he was holding back. Now, I didn't suggest any flashback. I didn't suggest any sitting across the coffee table. Well, my mom, when I was 14, with the guy next door and didn't tell dad. No. Set it up at a theme park. They're going into one of these shoot 'em up, make believe you're shooting that old West Corral type gunfight thing. He had to put the water pellets in. He shot his girlfriend. He hit her. He got triggered, and he kept shooting the paint at her while he was talking about, you did this, you son of a bitch, you did. And she's, what are you talking about? That was my mom. You know, this is the kind of thing, I don't want to be long-winded, but my main goal is to bring out how you see the story, why it matters to you in a way that nobody else would do that. Every convention should be your own convention. If it's a car chase, how is it different? How do you see it different? Where is the nuance?
Right.
And I write that all up in a detailed analysis and send it over back to the writer in a way that they're going to understand it, and especially about where the gold is, what they're talking about. So that's the first thing I do. If they need rewrites or it's something else, I would help them with that. Then we'd have to break it down. We'd have to re-outline it. I've already written outlines in the middle of people's scripts for them. You know, Act 2 outlines, Act 2 beat sheet type of thing.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. No, there's no such thing as long-winded. Information is information. Believe me. I mean, this is.
I don't realize how long I'm talking when I start talking about this a little bit.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could go on. Every interview we do, we could just sit and have a chat if everyone had the time for just hours. I mean, it's just loving this whole, as we refer to it, ridiculously stupid business that everyone wants to get into, where you give up job security. Everything is an emotional roller coaster. You get more rejection than you get success,
My God.
And we wake up every day diving into this with no regrets. So, it's wonderful to share. So I unlike finding voice and stuff, my favorite kinds of movies are what I call the do nothing movies, the slice of life movies, or the walk-alongs. So a good example, a Station Agent. Station Agent, you're basically just hanging, watching this, very almost real-time life unfold, for these characters. And we've also seen other movies where we watched and we're like, God damn, nothing happened till the last 20 minutes. And 7 of those minutes were credits. So wow. And a good example for a series, Detectorists from UK. We ended up watching that, not knowing why the hell we were watching it, because there is no, there are no hallmark moments that speak to, struggles, stakes, obstacles, and stuff. It's a very.
I mean, they're in there. They're just very subtle.
They're very subtle, but it's such a slow boil. Sometimes they don't come up till near the end, and then you feel like, oh, payoff. But there's something mesmerizing about it where while we're watching it, you don't think that, but it was in between episodes. We're like 4th episode in. Why are we still watching this? This is. Wow.
It's good, but I don't understand why I'm so,
And something like Station Agent, again, where it's also very subtle, but it's such a slow burn until things start to become obvious. So going into a script, do you just like completely wipe your mind and take it for what it is? Or do you have to struggle against like this kind of a script? Is there any struggle to like
talk to me?
Okay.
The script will talk to me as I'm reading it. If it is an art house picture like you described, then I have to understand that that's an art house picture. It's going to be a lot of talking heads. It's going to be dialogue. Better be kicking my butt though. If you're going to do that, you better have David Mamet on the other side of the phone. That Tarantino and you got to have that if you're going to be like a talking head type of a thing. And if it's an art house thing, then I have to understand that that's what that is. Now that's not a huge part of the population.
Right.
A lot of people, I think it was the artist before our time had a place in New York called The Factory. What's his name? He's a painter, a Campbell Soup guy. The guy.
That's
Warhol. Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol. Jesus Christ.
And he hired
Frankenstein, his Frankenstein movie.
Frankenstein too, but we'll put him in there. We'll write Frankenstein in, but he would shoot these movies where like people were blinking and things like that, and people would go to see that.
Oh yeah, the 8-hour sleep film.
There's nothing. An art house picture is going to appeal to some people.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's not going to appeal to the majority. And if somebody's sending me an art house, the first thing I talk to them about is let's define the genre. What are you writing here? Now, I don't usually get them because they're not looking for structural components or anything like that. It would be more if they're looking for a story line. I'd try and find out, well, where's your storyline? I would suggest making a storyline there a little bit. What you were describing with the dialogue-based shows and stuff, hopefully that dialogue, why you say you keep watching it, hopefully that dialogue is moving the scenes in some fashion, like Tarantino does.
Right.
And people who are great writers, people like David Mamet, and that can move the scene. The Glengarry Glen Ross type.
Oh, the Bible of dialogue.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much. Oh my God.
Yeah. I watch those clips a lot. I really enjoy that. I'm a David Mamet fan, though. I wrote a play that was kind of like Mammoty called 30 Love, and it was like a tennis match.
Right.
Okay. So that's what I would suggest for that art house type of
okay.
thing.
So, and now one thing, do you look for, and we've talked about this, and we had someone in a webinar bring it up. We've always been odds with, we'll say, some producers and even managers who are reading stuff, and they're saying, well, this character's not very likable. And we would get furious with that because it's like, there's a lot of people out there in film that are not likable, the characters, but I want to know what's coming next every second of the film I'm watching them. And, you think back to like a Taxi, the TV series, Danny DeVito with his Louis De Palma character, one of the most reprehensible people in a sitcom. But oh my God, the minute you saw that bald top head with the fluffy hair, you're like, yes, he's going to piss me off. And I'm so into it, so making characters interesting. And that's like with Station Agent, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's spread out, but whoever wrote it built this character. There's just the little things that he does from scene to scene. You got to see what's next. Where's this going?
I don't think they have to be likable. The anti-heroes sometimes aren't likable, but what they are is compelling. You use the word interesting. I'll use the word compelling. Okay. I want to see what they're up to. Why do I want to watch them when I know they're up to no good? The assassin. Why do I want to see this? Why am I following it? Characters need to be compelling. If somebody would say, well, if you watched Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, did you like him? Was he an anti-hero? He was compelling. He'd done a lot of goofy little things there, but it wasn't where you're rooting for these guys to win. They got to be compelling, compelling. Yeah. That likable thing, I don't buy that at all. Why are you going to watch this character go through this journey? You don't have to like everybody. Everybody doesn't. You got a film noir. You got the these genres, the anti-hero genres that have a lot of that going on. We just want to know what they're up to. We want to follow them. We want to see what they're doing. Was the Joker likable?
Right.
Was he a likable guy? That was my favorite film of 2019. I wrote a paper on it for somebody. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't take my eyes. I read the script and then I watched the movie, and I couldn't take my eyes off of it because of the way that writing was there and the way it was put on. I saw the common topic of exploration. Here's a guy that suffered trauma to a point where he's delusional and he thinks that this world is the way it's going to go, and he still changes into a madman. But the voice, the common topic, likable, compelling. I'll go with compelling every time. You'll have other characters that might be likable in there, like maybe his mom or maybe the girlfriend that lived across in the apartment building there. But you don't have to make them using that word. I'm quoting, folks, for you out there in TV land. I'm quoting likable. Make them compelling. Make me want to watch them. Put them through the ringer. Give them obstacles. Make them have to do something to get through them obstacles. Change them in a way that they have to adapt because of those obstacles. Bring them to another level. But you don't have to put that word on them. They can, the old kick the dog thing,
Yeah.
So that's my take on that.
We
there's the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and none of those people are
Love
likable.
We love that show.
Love it. That's one of my favorite shows.
That's yeah, it's just a train wreck. You can't help but keep watching these people.
Yeah, I love that show. I find that show really, I mean, exactly what you were saying, Jim, before. I find that very compelling. It's always funny, and then there's like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine where they
It's a great
show
show.
the other side, and they show the other side of these people, and then there's Seinfeld. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Four people in their 30s that act like they're kids. They're all anal. They're all selfish. They're all worried about little things. They all have their own things going on. Now, likable? I don't know, but we feel for them. They compel us.
Exactly. You're excited to see them on the screen, but I never felt a deep emotional connection. And I always thought that this is, here's 4 borderline sociopaths plugging their way through New York who can't understand, and Seinfeld's character especially, I mean, that was his whole drive, can't connect with any level of understanding on why. I love the one episode where he cries. It's just like, what's happening? What is this salty fluid falling from my eyes? Is this what they call tears? I laughed so hard at that.
Yeah. And nobody changes.
Right.
Right.
You know,
and that's the thing with
big
Sunny.
Revelations like from the 80s sitcoms. When you went into the 90s and Seinfeld started that whole thing, that nobody really changes at the end. They're the same people, but the ensemble was so strong. The storylines are so strong. The voice between Larry and Jerry Seinfeld is something that we've never seen before. All of that factors into well written. The story engine can knock them out of the park. They have an engine in there that just takes that premise and just pop them out time after time, and they got better as they did it. All forget about likable.
I always viewed that as a resurgence of the golden age. Through the 80s, there was a lot of very milquetoast, not great sitcoms. I grew up watching The Jeffersons, All in the Family, Chico and the Man, and I watched those shows, and like All in the Family, Archie Bunker is not likable.
There
right?
you go.
But he sets everything up for some great, laughs as they dealt with some really big things. I was really too young to understand the depth of what they were dealing with until I got a little older and with reruns. But then through the 80s, I'm like, what happened to all these shows? I used to love Sanford and Son and Chico and the Man and What's Happening, Maude, all this stuff. Everything's like dried up. It's like everyone suddenly got afraid to push social topics and real humor in real kinds of situations. And then in the 90s, like something like Seinfeld comes up, the characters don't have to get emotionally evolved. They don't have to evolve. Where in the 80s, everyone had to become the best that they could be. Family Ties was wonderful, but why does everyone have to be famous? I mean, when the village idiot, Nick, ends up with an art business and is almost more successful than anybody else, you're like, gee, what the hell? Why can't he just be Nick?
Right.
Anyway,
I love to watch the evolution of it. I like to watch the evolution of it. And now there's another resurgence going on with how the sitcoms are structured emotionally again because of all of the political issues that are going down here and the race issues that are going there now. You got to be funny in a different way. You can't be making those. You can't be Don Rickles or any of that. Even Seinfeld, a lot of that stuff might not fly today. So now, how creative are you to move with this? How are you going to be able to take this great idea, this premise, and bring it to today's audience? Because today's audience and yesterday's audience are going to want to watch it.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I listened to Mark Maron, and he happened to a couple weeks ago have talked to Sally Struthers, who was on his show, and I loved that interview. I loved Sally Struthers, and hearing her was wonderful. But it made me think, because she had mentioned this is the 50th anniversary of All in the Family. Wow. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I grew up watching that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You're looking good. Well, you're looking good.
Well,
over there.
It's I'm a year older.
You should see him. He's looking good.
I'm a year older than the show. But it did make me think, because we were talking about it when I was talking about Danny. I said, All in the Family was just a blockbuster breakout, very important sitcom. But oh my God, you could not air that in its entirety today. People would lose their shit.
I mean,
because they don't have the 2000s subtleties that have been crafted to deal with these issues,
But they started it.
They started it.
Norman Lear started it because he had 2, 3, 4 shows, the Jeffersons, Maude. There was a couple of them that came out of that. He started it until it got sappy. Like you said, it got sappy in the 80s.
Yeah. After, Gene Stapleton left, Rob Reiner took off. So they did Gloria, but that was a different network, a whole different group of writers that did her show. But then we had Archie Bunker's Place, which we had, nobody. And they fell into that era where people were losing their confidence on this 1-2 punch thing. And that's, eventually just faded into, oblivion, without really making a mark. But then we had things like MASH.
Great show.
Which evolved from just, mostly just the nonsense of being in a Korean War situation and occasionally touching on something towards the last couple of years. They really dug deep. Alan Alda was the whole thing of Hawkeye, his mental breakdown.
It was a character study.
Yeah, it was 11 years building up to all of this stuff. If you're going to get real about their emotions, this man has to deal with something. And I loved how they addressed that. And I think they went out like a champ.
I think so. I mean, I watched a lot of those. I had to study a lot of this stuff over the years, and I would watch that and look for, like you said, you talked about the emotional line and the man that got sensitive and all of these other things, and I would look at that. But then I would look at the cool conventions that they had. Radar, incoming wounded. He knew it before it came. Look at the snappy dialogue. Wasn't done before that. The convention of the speakers. Incoming wounded, or here's what we're doing. They're using that as a structural device to cut the acts up and do all these other cool things. These writers were on top of that.
Oh yeah,
all of these.
It was brilliant.
MASH was such a great show for that. You're looking at the conventions. You're looking at Hawkeye and Burns and the inner antagonism that's going on. All of that stuff was so well done. It was just so well done. It deserved all those 11 years.
Yes, it did.
It really did. But I think you don't even have to go back that far to see how shows have changed over time. I mean, you go back to just Friends or, The Sopranos, and shows have changed since then.
Oh,
you go back and watch those shows compared to the shows that are out today. Like Friends is problematic in a lot of ways.
It is. Well, we watched some shows that because we if we're not doing episodes, movies for the podcast, we're just watching stuff because we like watching stuff. And we've stumbled on a few things that seem to have lived, a fairly decent shelf life, and we just have now gotten around to it. But we've had moments where it's like, whoa, they wouldn't put that in the theater today. You can't say that word. You can't do all that. It doesn't take long to see where there's a big shift in evolution or departure from some sort of writing structure and what gets out there.
I even think a lot of writers, if you go back to your own old scripts, I was reading one of our older scripts today and identified a couple of dialogue things that I was like, oh, these are a little problematic.
Yep.
Yeah. It's because of our times and how the times, these other shows, MASH, All in the Family, set it all up for us for where we are now, the evolution of man, the evolution of our society, and the evolution of the television show. You look at David Chase with The Sopranos, that was never done before, the way that was happening, and things like this. And look at the what they did for the shows, starting with Seinfeld. Now, instead of having one, maybe two plots in a sitcom, you got 4 subplots going on at the same time.
Yes.
And now you got single camera. You got bing, bing, bing cuts like a film at the same time. They're doing so many more things. It's evolved at that pace. It's better at that pace. It's more fun to watch that way than the what is it, multicam. Remember the multicam? Everybody, I like the multicam. I come from the theater, but you're looking at both of it now and how it evolves. And there's still room for multicam out there. Chuck Lorre still does multicam, probably one of the most prolific producers that ever was set on the planet.
Oh yeah.
And, knows what he's doing, knows when to put a multicam up or a single cam up. And I think there's room for it. But what my point is, the evolution of this genre from TV, from All in the Family to now, with the way the society's changing, and this is something I talk to everybody I work with, I said, okay, let's talk about how your script is timely and relevant coming from your voice. Because you can't write 1995 now. You can't. You have to write 2021. Premise is good. Concept is good. Let's turn it into today. How is this relevant and needs to be said today? Maybe not everybody. You could do a film noir thing. I pitched something that I have is like film noiric, throwback to Twilight Zone. That would work in certain arenas. But 90% is relevant, timely, different than its predecessor, but like its predecessor.
Right. We have one that's based on an American folktale. And so it's old, very relevant. And we had some discussions and stuff here and there, but like a lot of times in this business, things sort of just disappear into the ether. That's all right. Just keep plugging. And I was looking at it and I thought, there's a couple things I think we could do here, but we just haven't had the time to get to that one yet.
Okay.
But that's one of our things is we've talked a lot about on this show is when we watch movies, because I have such a deep connection to movies from silent films, all the cowboys and gangster films, just all of these things. My grandfather was into Westerns and gangster films. So I know what it's like to have the anti-hero. Humphrey Bogart was a dick in every movie he was in. But you're just like, I can't stop watching him. And I want to see what's going to happen with this. It's the same. It's like, Jack Nicholson in Chinatown. That's not a lovable fella. But you're like, I would pay money to see how he handles taking a piss in a crowded restroom. It's just there's that level of interest and he's everything he does, like you said, is compelling. It's like, well, what? Does he do anything like a normal human being? Or is this like some entity that, and you get into it and that just pulls you in. That whole evolution of like the old stuff. So the whole point is I identify with a lot of old stuff when I watch something new. Like we just watched one that had it was an indie film, had an opening sequence, and I'm like, oh my God, that's not just Road Warrior and Mad Max. Christ, that's going back to Duel and
wow.
With
the car,
and
it's with Dennis Weaver, and directed first student film by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. See, I know all this. I don't know all of it.
I'll tell you,
I have watched a lot of stuff. People know Leslie Nielsen from, Naked Gun series. I know him from Forbidden Planet as the first like real science fiction in-depth hero with an in-depth story that wasn't Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and all the, When Worlds Collide and all that shit. This was like, when I saw Forbidden Planet, I was like, oh my God, this is what a space story is about. That was before I even saw Star Trek. But so pulling back to all these things, I do it because there are things to me in the golden age that worked and that are solid. And I've seen in movies in Hollywood's, the thematic approach, kind of departures from those things, almost like we need to break from the past and move to the future. But you can. I mean, look at Trauma film. Look at Trauma film. Remember Trauma? Oh yeah, absolutely. We know Trauma. Toxic Avenger, Toxiville.
Lloyd Kaufman.
And Toxic Avenger. I mean, you're the B movie people. So the thing is, you can have your departure and have your cult following, but as long as the movies that are doing that have a cool element to them, and all of these other things like Trauma, and it's not going to be for everybody. That's why they call it cult.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think it's valid to do that on the other side of the thing. On the other side of there's always a Joey Ramone showing up somewhere in the middle of the show, banging his 3 chords, and people love it.
I
love that reference.
Speaking of cult films, Terry, I'm curious. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but you're familiar with the film The Room? Tommy Wiseau?
I never saw it. I heard an interview about it, and I saw the actor talking about The Room, but I never really saw it, though. I did not.
So it's
what about it?
Well, it's widely known as like the worst film ever made. But we think it is. We think that there are some ways in which it's kind of a weird, wild masterpiece of some kind, even though it's terrible. I was just curious if you were familiar with it. What your feedback would have been as a script doctor had he given it to you.
Then again, not seeing, I should have yes-anded there like the old improv days. But
there you go. You could just pretend. No one would know.
I saw The Room. Let me tell you what I think about The Room. You know what? When I first saw it, I didn't know exactly what it was going to be on paper. But when I followed the line of what this is, I said, you know what? This is a cross between an art film and a bad anti-hero. And you know what? I get it.
And that would have sold.
That's totally valid. That works.
I never saw it, but the thing about it is, I mentioned earlier about the premise. Premise is a part of this script when I do a detailed analysis or when I take it apart. There's something about the concept. Now, perhaps when The Room was being pitched, they explained the concept. Now, you're not going to like this probably because but if the concept was something that would appeal to somebody, then it's relevant. And it's relevant because you're talking about it, 25 years later? Something like that?
I think he made it in 2003, so...
It's been a while.
A while, yeah.
Yeah.
16, 18 years later. So there's some relevance to it because people are still talking about it. And look at that. Look at the guy that made those B movies back in the day with Count Dracula, the guy that played Count Dracula.
Oh, Bela Lugosi, Ed Wood.
Ed Wood. Oh, we did a whole retrospective on Ed Wood.
Yeah.
See?
We spent a whole week watching Ed Wood movies.
If there's a fan base for that, who am I to say that you shouldn't go there? You're coming to me. I'm looking at your genre. I'm looking at your premise. I'm looking at your structure. www.storybuilderswrite.com. Anybody out there?
Yeah,
but
go there.
The thing about it is, we have to go to storybuilderswrite.com. I'm looking at that concept. And I have to grasp the concept of Ed Wood, of something number 9, right? The
Plan
movie.
9 from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Planet 9 from Outer Space, or The Room. I want to read the concept and talk to the writer and see. The concept doesn't have to be A, B, and C, 1 act, 2 act, and 3 act. But 90% of the movies out there are going to be that, and for good reason. They keep people in the seats. They give people an emotional reaction. They've got great story points, wonderful themes, a good message, protagonism, antagonism, everything you want for an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, that structure, it helps keep writers on track, It
keeps writers on track. It has a compelling story, but there are going to be people that are going to like what you like. There are going to be people that are going to like The Room. There are going to be people, and they need to be catered to as well. Right. So when I look at a script, I have to look at the concept. What are you trying to do here? I'm reading it. Now tell me what you want here. What is the goal with this concept? Tell me what you're trying to do. What do you want to do? And let's work on that.
See, now Tommy Wiseau could have used you because he is like an enigma in LA. Nobody knows a lot about like where he came from. But he's like independently wealthy. He came to America because he financed.
Yeah, he spent $6 million of his own money to finance
to make The Room.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. See, we talk about
him my number. Send him this podcast. Tommy.
We put him in the category with Ed Wood. People mock, and we, cut apart The Room because it was. Just because you want to make a movie doesn't mean you can make a movie. That's why they have directors and editors and
script doctors.
And camera.
And these guys were ahead of their time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. But like Ed Wood,
Henry Jaglom was doing it before anybody else.
Yeah. And Ed Wood was. I mean, he knew. He just didn't have any money, and he didn't have any self-restraint. But we always point out. I would rather have an Ed Wood career than no career at all. And that's not saying at least it's something. It's saying this man got up every day, wrote what he wanted to wrote, got the money however he got the money, shot it. And whether it was good or not, one thing that we always try to close with is, whether we've pretty much liked everything we've seen, like 80 films for, the podcast. Even if it sucks, it's just so bad, but there's no meter that you could give it a positive. It's just, this is just awful. The one positive you can pull out is, you know what, though? All these people got together and actually created something. And for every person who writes a shit script, shoots a shit movie, and just, blows it completely.
There's a million people who just talk about
I'm gonna
a script or doing
I'm gonna write a script. I'm gonna shoot a film. I'm a gonna, you're gonna, and they're, I'm a gonna themselves to death, having done nothing, and there's a level of pride. Ed Wood didn't do it to become a multi-billionaire or multi-millionaire back in that day. He did it because he loved it and he believed that what he was doing, he was spreading messages, which we love, the simple naivety of it, but they are fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We have a box set of his films and they're all fun. Well, except the one with the blackface number, but that was indicative of the times.
Right.
Problematic.
Actually had nothing to do with the movie. He just somehow got footage of what was once famous blackface number. And that was Ed Wood's thing is, found stock footage. I get it
and
for free.
I would say to Ed, Ed, you put that stock footage in. Is that going to be a convention? If that's going to be a convention, where else can we do it in a movie? I would probably get real literal with them. Okay.
Right.
That's a convention. Oh, that comes from you? Okay, let's string that along. Let's bring it up. Make it a gag,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed, I'm not paying you.
And maybe pick less problematic clips.
Yeah, do that too.
Cool.
But
Wow.
yeah, that's one thing we like about. I mean, and it's not. I mean, there are movies that are obviously wonderful, and they have we call it the Hollywood formula. It's just what you were talking about. There is a set. There's an A, B, C. There's a Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. There's your A, B, and C line, and these are the things that studios. You'll be successful with the studio if you master that aspect of it because that is what they are comfortable with. They're putting up tons of money, and in spite of what people think, they don't just shrug it off like, oh, that was only a $25 million production. They never use the word only with a number that relates to dollars.
Right.
It's a business. If I spend 25 million, I want 75 million in returns. I mean,
Right.
I want to be able to keep making money and do the things because some of that money is going to help us do the 400 million Kevin Costner film when he does
Exactly.
Waterworld 2 because we're just going to go ahead and let him do it.
Right.
you know.
And I think you're correct. And I think a lot of movies, even though they that I don't like to use formula, I'll call it form,
Mm-hmm.
even though that still exists, there's still creative ways to even work in and around that. Tarantino with Pulp Fiction. I mean, things like that. Look at Nomadland, when the way that was shot, it was non-traditional. Is it a love story? Is it not a love story? Well, they're not together all the time. Well, it's sepia tones and it's dark. And well, she's over 60 and still don't have this. There's things there that you can make it still carry your storylines, but it's different. It's a little bit different, and it's very imaginative inside of those boxes that you're sneaking out of when you're making those films.
Oh yeah, Clooney in Three Kings. I mean,
There you go.
It wasn't the story itself wasn't anything breaking new ground, but the way they shot it
Right.
was. And they actually, I remember going to the theater. They are actually handing out pamphlets explaining, this is how it's supposed to look.
That's pretty good. That's a great gag in itself.
Yeah. And it's like, with the last Star Wars, they had so many problems with the one scene where the ship goes into hyperdrive and they cut the sound because they're in space. Yeah. So they did a full silent cut. And so many people were complaining that the sound went out. I want my money back and this and that, that they had to put placards up. There is a scene in here where there is no sound. that is intentional.
There you go.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, the magic of cinema.
It
Sometimes
is.
people
Yeah.
don't get it. We talk about things that they used to do. Well, we did a whole thing on what was Hollywood's greatest promoter of schlock film.
Oh yeah, William Castle. The Tingler, where you put the buzzers in the theater seats, and
Is that right? I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, he did things like, this movie will scare you so bad when you come in, we have people representing Lloyd's of London.
he
and
would
you
like
can,
show up to the premiere in a coffin.
yep, and he'd have them sign actual like life insurance policies where if this movie actually scares you to death, your loved ones will be cared for. He was magical.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
And I think that helped people fall into, because he missed a few beats here and there. Some of the plot evolution in his films. But I don't know.
Well, I think he made up for it by making every movie that he did an experience in the theater, because this was back before you could get them and watch them at home. You only were able to experience them in the theater. But
like the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something like that.
Yes.
I mean, that's like going back to being a kid you were talking about, and everybody's throwing popcorn and hot dogs and all this other stuff, and it was an experience when you went there. You knew that you were going to have this experience, and I was thrilled with just everybody participate.
Oh yeah.
At the Theater of the Living Arts on South Street in Philadelphia.
I always felt like I routinely snuck out of the house as a kid. So yeah, I was still in single digits when I snuck out and made my way downtown to a midnight showing of Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time. I had no idea what the hell it was. And, back then they let me in because they thought I was somebody's kid. They're like, he's got to belong to somebody. Yeah. He's just going to go find his mom and dad and sit and watch
run up.
Yeah.
Meatloaf.
Yeah.
And it was a transformative moment because I found my tribe. And it's interesting because I heard an interview with Will Wheaton. He was talking about the same thing. He's like, that's when I realized, I'm weird as shit, and that's okay. And that's actually when I started feeling really comfortable, being a writer, because I was the odd egg out. I came from a very blue collar factory working family.
Right.
I'm talking about lasers and spaceships and Star Trek and all this shit. And they're like, what are you talking about? Star Wars came out. And I don't get it. And then, I'm spending all my time alone writing, in notebooks and on pieces of paper. And, well, why does any of that matter? You're going to go make auto parts like the rest of us. No. No, this is what I do.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do.
Good. You took the shot. You here you are. You did that. You're on the B-side podcast, having wonderful guests over here.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Have you had or can you tell us about your a transformative moment? I mean, was there a moment? I don't want to say transformative, but was there a moment that just kind of locked you into this is the world you need to be in?
That locked me into it? Well, for me, I was always enchanted with good writing. Even, I was in bands. I would write guitar parts and stuff like that as a real young man. But when I started going to the theater and realized that I could write for myself, it was a revelation that I never saw before.
Okay.
Because I'm in a theater. We got to LA. Everybody's young. And the transformative moment for me was I wrote a 4-page scene, did it in front of a bunch of people, and they liked it and clapped. And I was like, I created that. And since that,
yes,
I've produced probably 15 or 16 full-run shows in Los Angeles and readings. And I could say that ever since I started writing, the only theater shows that I've been in have been ones that I've written, pretty much.
Okay.
And that's really transformative for me. The moment was at that little theater on Wilshire Boulevard, doing that 4-minute scene that I wrote, and people are like clapping for that 4-minute scene. I was like, this is wild.
I love it. What?
And meeting Bruce Springsteen at the gym. That was a good moment too. So
Oh, well.
Well, yeah.
Certainly.
having
What?
a talk with Bruce, standing on a scale and the scale's not working. I don't know what's going on here. You know?
Anytime you can spend even a moment in close proximity of the boss, that's a big moment.
The boss told me a Hollywood story.
Tell us.
You want to hear the Hollywood story?
Yeah.
So we're down at the gym down on Beverly Boulevard in Los Angeles, butts on Beverly because the bikes are in the window. And Bruce would be in there at this time. I had just gotten to LA. He had just won an Oscar for Philadelphia. And, I would have a word with him here and there. Now, it just so happened on this one time, I was heading back to the locker to change. I was just going to change my shirt. And Bruce was standing on a scale outside of the men's locker room, and he's perplexed. I mean, the guy's perplexed. He's, I don't get this. What the hell's going on here now? I don't get. And I said, what's going on, boss? He goes, scale says I'm 20 pounds more. I said, well, you've been eating a lot of cheeseburgers. He goes, yeah, but overnight. So what happened was he didn't have the rock on there correctly.
Oh.
So the kid comes from behind the desk, right? Says, Mr. Springsteen, you don't have the click. He puts it on and goes back. Oh, there I am. He starts this laugh. He walks into the locker room with me. I'm changing my shirt. And he looks at me and he goes, that just goes to show you. I said, what? He goes, they can make you believe anything they want. He was talking about Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, yeah. We've had talks about that. Good stuff, funny stuff and tragic stuff that, Hollywood can. You got to be careful. It's.
They can make you believe anything they want.
Yep. You have to go in suspenders on tight, boots cinched.
Yeah.
And be ready to just, bat things away and not be afraid to challenge or ask questions. Cause we've talked, to some people, we've told, stories that we all read about and stuff, through Hollywood's history on how, brilliant talents have just been crushed because they were told you're not wanted anymore. Nobody's interested in what you have, and that's just, it can be rough. You got to be able to, well, wait a minute. That's you, and maybe you and you and you and you and you, but there's a lot of other people who I can call you. So I'm going to go ahead and, keep going until I'm thoroughly convinced. I've talked to every human being on planet Earth who told me, yeah, you're acting as shit. All right. Then I might consider, moving on to something else, but probably not. Because that's still not decisive enough.
No, I think you're doing all right. You pretty charismatic, the both of you here. Very entertaining, and it's a good format.
I tell you what, not too many people would know that. I mean, our listeners, hopefully that's why they listen to us. But like I said, we're introverts, so
yeah.
Well, you stepped up. Then you stepped up. You're not a stagehound like me. You stepped right up.
There we go. What? So I have a script and say I'm listening to this podcast. I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm going to go look for Terry and, see what he can tell me about this before I, am I ready to start sending this out? What would your advice be to writers who are thinking of coming to you? What could they do for themselves as like first steps to avoid like the top 10 things you do that, if only they'd have just done this, we could have avoided this whole thing, this whole long drawn out thing, it's that whole thing, 2 scoops today, will save you, 5 tomorrow kind of thing. If you just do that, it's not going to get worse. So what would you suggest to me, this young writer, who's going to come at you, what could I do by sitting down with my script that would make my interaction with you even more productive and informative?
Well, you should be able to tell me what your story is inside of 3 minutes without, and then they did this, and then they did that. You should be able to tell me the essence of your story Be able to tell me what thematic line you're trying to get across. Be able to tell me what you want to say, how you identify with this character, and tell me a little bit about your main character's journey.
Okay.
Because if you tell me your journey, you're going to tell me, not even knowing it, you're going to tell me your obstacles. You're going to tell me the other side of it. You're going to tell me the all is lost moment, and you're going to tell me, did he turn around or did he die? You're going to tell me that. You're going to do that organically and subconsciously. And then you know you have a story.
Okay.
So if you can do that, and then I would say go to my website and just look at the different services that are there, because they're explained, and there's some samples there as well, that you could talk about. 30-minute consultation that I give free of charge, and this like that. But if you can articulate what the story is inside of like 3 minutes, the journey of that character, and you're talking, and the obstacles are being presented, and the antagonism, and they work it through it, then you got something there. Then you already have the basis of your structure and of your emotional line and what you're trying to say, and as yourself.
Okay. So now if I'm listening to the podcast, I hear that answer, and I take a minute, run through my head, and realize, shit, I don't know how to formulate this. Would you say that's an important time to kick back with a cup of coffee and read that script big front to back with a red pen and figure out why you can't iterate that to someone like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, and you don't have to have it perfect either. It can
Right.
be stumbling, it can be bumbling. But if you're not able to say that, and then you're going to be stuck in episodic land in the middle of your script somewhere in Act 2.
Okay.
And you're going to have scenes that are repetitive, but you don't think they're repetitive because they're saying different things, and then you're going to have out of the blue endings and reveals that are not foreshadowed. And you're going to have a lot of things in there that, because you don't have an arc in the journey of a story, that just show up,
Right.
and it's going to be contrived.
Yeah.
And we don't want it contrived. We want it to organically build,
Mhm.
either up or down or whatever. And the characters are growing at the same time. So even if you bump, when it's a story about this guy who wanted to have a coffee machine placed, but he didn't have enough money, so he stole this thing from the thing, and then he went to jail. Well, that's not a story. But if you say it's a guy who wanted to have a coffee shop parlor, and he didn't have enough money, so he went out and he got some money from his dad, who then sued him, and then they got together with all of the lawyers, and from that he was able to get contributors, and the contributors helped him out, but he had to, and then he got his coffee shop. Now
Okay.
I can see the conflict, I can see the antagonism, and I can see everything he's going through, and I just came up that at right here on the second, looking at my coffee cup. So if you could stumble bum, and give me that, then I know that there's a story in there. And now,
Yeah.
and now, yeah.
Okay. And so listeners, Terry, with all that information, can get your script. And I mean, that's basically your purpose, is to bring that out. So I can give you a great narrative, it's in there, and you're basically cutting the weeds away, clearing the path, making it more obvious and organic.
Right. And
Right.
I want everybody I work with to get their script produced. I take a special interest when I'm working with something. It's just something that I'm looking at it, and, I want my writers to do well. I'm going to put all of my stuff in there to try and make that happen, because I want them to succeed. I want anybody that's writing something to succeed. And I'll take a risk and talk to you about what you're trying to say, how you're trying to say it, Sometimes people don't want to hear it, and a lot of times they do, because this is the thing that we have to have. Because being in the industry, knowing how the industry changes and what people are looking for, the writer is going to have to take a look at and realize that he or she have that in them. They have that in them, and when we talk about it, that's going to come out, and they're going to be nodding like I'm nodding now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think, for anyone, it can be easy to get butthurt for someone making notes on your script, something you worked so hard on, and it's like, you're going to need to change this and, so and so. But I think anyone who's giving you notes on a script, and Terry, you especially, anyone who's, doing this kind of work for you is there for you to help you. Right. So
Well,
don't take that kind of stuff personally. Don't be hurt by it.
Right. And also remember the process that I described earlier in this interview. The process, the first thing I do is I'm looking at what's happening, what's working, where your voice is, how it's kicking. I'm looking at what you're already doing well. I'm not, and I know these guys will like, well, this is that, and it's on a nose dive. I'm not doing that. I will get to that, but I want you to know what you're really kicking at, where your voice is, where your sensibilities are, and what's working in there, so that we have that first. That's kicking, and then we go back to what's not working.
And that's
if you go to my website.
Go ahead. I was going to say, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I talk about that on my website when I have detailed analysis. There's a video there where I talk about finding the gold in your own. I talk about the Shakespeare in Love movie. I listened to Mark Norman one time about 15 years ago before Tom Stoppard came on and revised it. Tom Stoppard went in and pulled the gold out of there for him. And then you see what happened to it. It was there. Writers coming to me. If you're going to come to a script doctor, you're pretty damn serious.
Yeah.
And if you're that serious, there's something that that you have. And part of my job is to bring that out and shine that up. And then we do, like you mentioned a moment ago, then the weeds are going to get cut.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an age-old way of educating people, is like in construction, right? Now, I'm not going to, walk you to every floor and show you every crack and missed nail and gap, where the tape didn't stick between the drywall. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the foundation of this thing. We're going to start with, this thing is rock solid. This, I see where this is, and this. Now, this is great, but let me show you where it could be a potential problem. And it's not like, well, don't hurt anybody's feelings. That's how the human brain is wired to work. We work when things that we do are relayed back to us with acceptance, with accomplishment, with, and it's not like an ego thing. It's just, it worked. Then we can see more readily these cracks, these missing nails, these bad punctuations, he said the same line 6 times in 4 pages, but 6 different ways. Oh, now I see it, because you've shown me how everything else was working. That's what makes that stick out. So next time I'm doing something, I've not just gotten some advice, but I've been educated.
Exactly.
And I think that's fantastic. One of the things we've said is, everyone wants to be successful in this business, or to succeed in this business, but we've always felt that you're truly successful when you can help someone else.
Collaboration is the number one thing, especially with me working with other writers. I'm collaborating with them.
Oh, yeah.
That's my job. I have to bring out what's great in this writer. That's the number one thing, because I know everybody that's come to me, and I don't care what skill level they're at. There's something in there that we're going to find. Some writers you got to put more work into, some not, but still, that there's something in there that they're coming to me, that they're trying to tell the world in a way that only they can. Their voice, their way of looking at the world, their experiences, and my job is to bring that out first, and then we're going to go back and talk about, what do you mean you don't have a plot 2? What the hell?
Yeah.
Depending, you adapt the sensibility of the people you're writing with.
Well, and going back to what you said about if someone's coming to you, they're serious.
They're going to be serious. They want their stuff to get produced.
Yes, and we've told our listeners, so new listeners, if you just hopped in today, be ready to get kicked in the ass over and over and over and over again. And we won't get all philosophical about it, but when you turn around and thrust your ass out, ready to get kicked, that's when you know in your heart you are on the right path. You are serious, because you are going to get told. There are people who are not nice. There are people, we've had things come back, notes come back that we've read and we're like this. And I got a spreadsheet that just keeps growing and growing and growing, because I don't want to cross bad people more than once. And there's been a couple times where I've wrote, this person's just a dick, because they'll write a note Like, I didn't get why this happened. And I'm like, okay, no, wait a fucking minute. First of all, you had the pitch. It was in the forward. It was in the log line. It was in the synopsis, and it was in the plot summary. And it's the title of the fucking movie. How did you not get it? And then in the script, that was it was, without like third grade exposition, but you can tell just by the flurry of notes. This was somebody who they like gave it a cursory glance, or worse yet, gave it to an underling and relied on bad notes, and they just kind of, I don't want to be bothered with this. Unfortunately, there are people like that, and I feel bad for folks who, if we had run into that first off, we might have a slightly different look,
right,
on doing this. But we were fortunate.
It does happen.
Where we our skin got toughened, and we know. So when those things started happening, we're like, hey, you know what? I get it. And we take notes seriously. We take them very seriously. But then we also weigh, like if we have a bunch of notes from different sources, we'll look at, okay, what feels right? I get what they're saying. Okay, that makes sense.
What's underneath the note? What's underneath the note? What are they really trying to say? They may not be able to articulate it.
Right. And occasionally you have to look at a note and go, well, I get why they made that note, but I'm going to ignore it because thematically, everything else, it doesn't fit, and you have to take that leap. Not only do you have to put your butt out to get it kicked and, jump into the I'm in this business mode, you have to be brave enough to judge for yourself sometimes.
Right.
Because that's what happened to us in the beginning. We're like, we'll take these notes. Okay. Then we'll take these notes and we'll change this up. And then it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, we made all these changes as per these notes. And this next person just fucking railed on it. Oh, yeah. What do we do?
That happened.
Yeah. But you find your way.
I worked with a writer that changed the script 7 times because the producer said we were reading it,
I believe it.
Gave it to me for detailed analysis all those times, but they want this, they want this change, and they want that change. And I didn't agree with it, but now I got a whole different version of that to give you notes on. But like you mentioned, you're changing it to please somebody who might be interested. Everybody might be interested. At least that's what they're going to tell you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's about true to you.
Yeah, it's about being true to yourself, and then finding the right person at the right place at the right time, for your story.
And what makes sense to you? What really makes sense to you? The essence of this story. Does it make sense to what we found? If it makes sense for the essence of the story, good. If it's just a convention that you think's cool because you saw it on Seinfeld, no.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to be careful, with any kind of notes on a script, because we know the whole thing. So I've got this script, it's a story. It's about 3 kids. It's kind of like Little Rascals and everything. But then by the time I got through these 8 producers, now I've got some 65-year-old man working as a haberdasher, next to a hot dog vendor. Hell, I can't even sell this script because I don't even know what it's about anymore.
It's pretty good.
So yeah, listeners, you need to have a level of trust, number one. And, we've interviewed a lot of people for a lot of things with a lot of advice, and Terry, you being the first script doctor, these are things that you need to do. You have to be able to submit yourself to, not scorn.
Constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. Advice.
Yeah. Not everybody's perfect, and there is no perfect writer. There is no perfect script. There's no perfect anything. But almost everything can be made better when you're honest with yourself in that, yeah, I get what he's saying. This doesn't even need to be here. These 5 pages, like with us, these 6 pages are shit. They're just, anyone would have told us that had they read it. Like, why do you have this? This is almost like a fucking 7th grade science film being transcribed, for 5.5 minutes. Well, because we wanted to show how much work we put into it. That doesn't work. Audience doesn't care.
Yeah, it's true.
Why are there zombies? Because of Tootsie Pops. They'll buy it and they'll roll with it.
It's true. That's true. That's good.
So, be strong to yourselves, folks. We always say that, believe in what you're doing. If you're writing, You're doing something most people haven't even started yet. If you finished a first draft, you are leaps and bounds ahead of thousands of Amagunas. And if you are reaching out to get that second draft even better, again, you're way far ahead of all these groups of people. These little things, these very little things of, going onto a website and sending something to Terry and listening to what he has to say. It's not a huge thing, but oh my God, it can make a monumental change in your journey, and it's always educational.
Because some writers might have a pretty good script after working with me, and they're like, well, I don't really know how to pitch that.
That's the other thing.
Because maybe they're an introvert and now they get in front of a bunch of suits. Well, we can work on that too. We can get a nice 3, 4, 5 minute page going here. We can go over that. We can get that together and show you how to get all that done. The essence of that has to be in those 3 or 4 paragraphs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're pitching, or if it's a pitch Bible. When you got a great pitch Bible for a television series, you feel a lot better going into the room talking to them about it because you're backed up.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You know that you're backed up. You could stumble and bumble and go in the car and go, it's all right. It's in my Bible. It's in my Bible as you're driving. So these are some of the tools that the writer wants to be able to develop, be able to know your log line inside and out when you're going into Starbucks and things like this.
Yeah.
Be able to, somebody asks, what's it about? Be able to tell them what it's about in 3 minutes.
And I will say,
about in 3 minutes.
I will say, just because you're a good writer, don't take for granted that you can write a pitch. We learned that. We're a little egomaniacal. We know we're good at what we do, and we know we're always learning and evolving. But yeah, pitching, like I said, it knocked us on our ass. We're like, we're shit. We're never going to get anywhere. And then we went through the painful learning process of, proper pitching. It's an art, and don't be afraid to ask for help, people. Because we were at a point where like, I don't know about this, but then we learned about some pitching. We made some constructive changes, and ding, 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 ding. Someone rang the bell, ooh, they want to have a talk.
Yeah.
So, cause you could have Gone with the Wind, but if you have a shit pitch, there is no Rhett Butler.
It'll start with your very log line. I'll even say it starts before the log line. I'll say it starts with the tagline, a little tagline on top of the page before you even do the log line. If it's a comedy, you make it funny. Like I have a show called Universal Chords. It's about people in a band situation. And the tagline says it's about a wife and his husband are pretty much dysfunctional. Tagline says, enmeshment in the key of E. And then I go into my log line.
Nice.
Little tag up there. You know what I mean? Rock and roll does forget. Little tagline up there. And then you go into your log line,
I like it.
I like it.
I like it a lot. Well, and that's voice. That to me, that's you representing some of who you are by not, giving that, like we did the first time out, that sterile, we could have taken it out of a textbook kind of thing with nothing to it. And we did. We've added words and little clever things like that. And it just feels more natural. And when we have talked to people, there was no awkward getting to know one another. They felt like they were dialed into us, and their instincts were, mostly right. And it was really us just trying to fathom where you're coming from. So like Terry, if you're the producer, we'd be having this talk, and we're just trying to figure out, learn a little bit about you. And then we just, we talk about the project, and then that all gets revealed. But with a successful delivery of our voice in a pitch or in a script, you already know who you're talking to at a level that, that's your business. You're a producer. You're going to put money into something. You gotta know something about these people that you like. And we hear that all the time, and we've talked about it. If you're going to work in television, don't be an asshole. Don't be an egomaniac, man, because you will not get in a room. And the worst thing for me, a writer, could do is come up with this brilliant series and get in there and everyone finds out there's just a raging rectum, and then get fired from your own goddamn show.
Yeah.
You know, and you collect your paltry little checks, but everyone else is steering it because you just, you know, don't listen to people. Don't take.
They
doesn't have
want
to
to
be.
work with you. You want to be able to be worked with.
Yeah. And especially in like television, not everyone in the room is a script doctor, but everybody has to collaborate and be heard. And, you know, that might be a great idea, even though it wasn't yours, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. That's what brainstorming is all about. That's what, you know, getting together and breaking a story, they call that. And that's what that's all about. And you're going to be working 10 hours a day with somebody. They're going to say, do I want to be working 10 hours a day with this bozo or what?
Yep.
You know? So that's a great point that you've made.
All right.
All right.
Listeners, we are going to have all of Terry's relevant links in the show notes. You know how it works. You know, so go visit.
You have my links down there?
Well, we're going to get them from you. When I type up the show notes, all the links you want, man.
I got so much links here. I got a butcher shop, huh? That's one of my dad's old jokes.
I love it. Terry, it has been wonderful talking to you. This
thank you.
Is I can't put words to it. It's an extremely
I can
valuable.
put words to it. Hire me. I'll put words to it.
There we
All
go.
right.
Extremely valuable to our listeners. And yeah, listeners, hire Terry and, you know, take advice, you know, show your stuff to people. We've talked about it. Get your friends and family, do a read through. You don't have to hire actors. Just hear the words that you wrote spoken by somebody else. It will make a world of difference to you in interpreting your own voice and what's going on. You know, reach out to Terry. Like I said, we'll have the links, and don't be afraid. You know, anyone who is interested in helping, you know, Terry, you said you have a deep interest in seeing your writers succeed. We feel people who take the time to do this, you know, even if it's their job, you can't help but get better from it as, you know, taking you on as a service. So listeners, do that. Is there anything going on that you would like to put out there that we haven't hit on? You have any?
You mean on a personal level, or what I'm doing in addition to this?
Oh, anything.
Either or. Anything you want to share.
First
that
of all,
you want the
I'd
world
like
to know.
I'd like to say to both of you, Danny and Jim, thank you very much for having me. You're very sweet. I want to tell you that.
You're too kind.
I may be doing a little. I created a little talk show for Zoom, and I'll keep you posted to that. It's called Backstory, where I talk to hopefully famous writers and maybe award winners, and talk about how they came up, what happened in their life that got them there, what didn't happen that got them there, what their obstacles were before they even became the writer that we know.
Nice.
So creating that, I'll keep you apprised of that. If I got the word out on a couple guests now, if that happens, I'll let you know about that.
Absolutely.
And personal thing that I'm working on, and I'm writing pitches for things like that and working with my writers. And just getting back to what you said, that the thing about writing and being a writer is that it's a very progressive thing, and you get better and better the more you do it. And it's pretty much an ageless thing too, because, you know, you're not out on a football field breaking a limb or something like that, you know. And I think any idea that you have, if you sit down and you put a little study into it and you put a little time into it and you start reading scripts and everything, you're going to get better. And not only that, you're going to see where your interests lie. You're going to see what really compels you. Hey, that's not my genre. I'm more moved to this. I'm more moved to these types of characters. This is the message that I want to say. This is how I grew up, and people need to know this. I'm going to construct my story around it. You know, be you in your voice, tell your story, but make sure that, you know, you're doing it well. You're doing it well on the page, and get all the notes, and you'll be ready to, you know, kick butt and take some names. So
I love it.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you so much.
And listeners,
Writers. Yeah, there we go.
Listeners.
We will keep you, as we get information, as we do in various episodes, we drop updates. So, as soon as we hear something from Terry, we will share that with you folks so you can get in on it as well. But I think with that, we will let Terry go. And, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing all this. It is wonderful. And we hopefully can do this again.
Yeah.
I feel like there is way more that we haven't covered that I would just love to,
Love to.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that, folks, was a fantastic talk with Terry McFadden and script doctor extraordinaire. I hope that you listened. I hope that you go back and re-listen to this particular interview. A lot of excellent information, sort of demystifies the whole process of what does a script doctor do, and also what to expect when you're working with a studio or trying to get in with a studio. This is the stuff you need to know. This is everything, everything that you need to know. And the advice that he's going to give you if you go to him and have him go through your script, this is the kind of thing that can make the difference between spending 10 years trying to get in and within a couple months of working with Terry, getting someone, learning how to get someone that level of interest, and not just with the script, but help with pitches. Man, I cannot tell you how important that is. Like I said in the interview, Danny and I we have done this all the long, hard road. We have learned the lessons the hard way, and it can be really discouraging. But you got to just keep pushing. But yeah, pitching, man, it's a thing. It's its own art. And for those of you who are out there and have tried different things, writing a play is different than writing a screenplay. There's different things that you have to shift around a little bit, in terms of how and what's presented, as compared to what's on a screen, or on a television. And it's the same thing. It's, script writing is different than novel writing, very different. And as I have learned recently, writing a graphic novel is yet another difference, another very singular beast. So, pitching is the same. And as we talked about, there's a lot of different pitches out there, different kinds. There's the elevator pitch. That's, you've got 30 seconds go. You've got 3 minutes go. So those are all the spoken pitch. You have the written pitches. You got your 2-page pitch, which we've talked about before on Stage 32. You've got a single page. You've got a pitch Bible, which is several pages, which I recently just created one for our zombie horror, and one that we were working on for our sci-fi series. And those are different than just straight technical written pitches. There's just so much. And rather than beat your brains out and spend hundreds of dollars and many, many hours on books and reading them, reach out to somebody. And Terry is the guy. I mean, he is jam-packed with experience, with success. This is the kind of person that you want in your corner, because he's not getting anything long-term out of these, when he says, hey, let's do this, I suggest this is what needs to happen. And you pound out those changes in your script, and you sell it and you're everything, he's not getting residuals from what you've done, right? He is literally doctoring your script. And, it's worth it especially if you're out there and you're like, oh man, I was so close to getting to the door, but I got a note that said this, a note said that. Rather than, beat your brains out over it, go to somebody. Go to somebody about your script. If you feel solid about your script and you just can't get anyone interested, then go to him and say, hey, man, I would love it if you could help me put together a pitch, right? So those things are really important because this is a ridiculously difficult business. Right now, Hollywood is ablaze with the tales of, studios are thirsty, they're hungry, they're starving, they're frantically scooping up stuff. And while there is a level of truth to that, understand this. So like network television, they only have so many slots. They only have so many slots they can fill, and they already have like 80% of them filled with programming. So your brilliant idea for a new show, say you were going to one of the top 3 networks, you're waiting in line to replace something that they're going to axe or they've already announced is axed. And with you are maybe 100 other people trying to push their thing to them, and there's only the 1, maybe 2 slots that they have. It is hard. And it is all about timing. It is all about, there is a degree of luck in this business that you have the right person in the right mindset at the right time to read this script and the theme resounds with them, right? You don't have to sell it. And like Terry said, that, is your TV pilot have anything to do with what's going on in the world today, right? With, the struggles, the rampant racism that we have. What is your show tying into right now that people can identify with? And that changes frequently. So anyway, it's a hit and miss. And, every miss, you just look for the next hit, right? That's what you got to do. You just got to keep pushing. Finding your voice, that's something that a script doctor can help you in terms of the tone. But you really we've said it before, write what you want to write. Write it how you want to write it. Get in there. And that is your voice. Now, you may still need to call someone like Terry. Maybe you need to juggle things around. The stakes aren't presented here and this should be presented here. This is too late in the script, or this is too soon. We need to balance these things out. Maybe there's some slough that you can cut out. But the whole thing is, though, you did it in your voice. So don't let anyone ever tell you how to write a script in terms of voice or tone. That's all up to you. Formatting, that's a given, right? You can learn how to format a script. We did. Everybody does. But it's your words, and it's how you move a story and what you're trying to tell. So believe in yourself, people. And while you're at it, believe in yourself, check our episode notes, because we will have links. Remember, Terry can be found at www.storybuilderswrite.com. That link will be in the notes, along with his IMDb and some other links to things that he has going, so that you can reach out to him and you also, get to know a little bit about what he's about outside of this interview that he gave us, which was just wonderful. We are so lucky to have had him and all of our previous guests. We've had just the most magnificent people. And I hope you guys are getting some things out of that, out of these interviews with these wonderful working creatives who are sharing the same, even with success, they still share the same burdens that everyone else trying to, come up through the ranks is carrying. So with that, go to our own website, www.lordsofmissworldproductions.com. We have everything there. We have all the links to the platforms that we are on. All of our episodes are on there. Our blog is on there. Updates on other films that we're working on, which I will say are a little lax as of late, but taking some steps to move forward with some of this stuff. So keep your eye out. Also, our links to our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Check us out on those. And as I always say, check out who we're following and who's following us. Those are fellow creatives. There are also other podcasters. Give these podcasters a listen as you can. And if you like what they're doing, and even if it's not a subject that is, that you're going to take up every week or, a couple times a week or whatever. If you listen to them, you're like, hey man, that's pretty good. Just, I'm not a sports guy, but that was a really good, fun podcast. Give them a rating. If you can't, give them a review, but you know how ratings work. We say it all the time. Also on our website, a link to our Patreon. Go ahead and check that out if you're interested in becoming a patron and supporting the show. We are going to pretty soon, maybe, I don't know, maybe by the time this comes out. Also on our website is going to be a link to merchandise branded with the Bravo for the B-Side logo. So look for that. If you haven't already found it, it should be out by the time this gets aired. All right. That about does it. Keep writing, folks. Listen to these interviews, listen to these people, learn, soak it in, take what you can, apply it to you, apply it to your work, your craft, whatever you're doing. And, sometimes it'll all fit. Sometimes some of it will fit. You'll figure it out. But just know, everybody's out there pushing it, and at least you're doing it. So that's the big thing. All right. So until next week, B-Siders, this is Jim, and hopefully Danny will be back. God, we want to get rid of this for good. And we'll have some, more great stuff coming. All right, folks. Keep doing what you're doing, and I look forward to talking to you in another week. Bye.